Hello everyone, welcome to part 2. We're looking at the p5 coordinate system and the given function. The functions that are already there when you start a new sketch. But first things first, I know I'm not going to remember a week from now what the file named proud join is. That's just a random name. So I'll start by giving it a descriptive title. You know, one of the nicest things about p5.js is that it encourages play with code. So let's change some values to see what happens. We know create canvas with the arguments 400 by 400. Create a canvas with a width of 400 pixels and a height of 400 pixels. What about this background function with one value being passed to it? What if I change it to 200, 100, or 225? And just like that, by playing with this code, we are able to create something new and also understand how some things are working. We know this background function with this single value being given to it is changing the canvas background in grayscale. All right, let me leave it at 225 and let's look back at create canvas. We want to know how the canvas is mapped out so that we can start positioning elements on the computer screen. The origin is at the top left corner. The y-axis remains vertical, but increases downward in p5.js. The x-axis remains horizontal and increases rightward. So a little difference from how it is in geometry class, but it's basically the first quadrant. Just imagine the corner, the top left corner of your screen as the 0, 0 point. This point right here is 120, 20. This next point is 180, 70. Let's find the middle. Half of the width is 200, half of height is 100. And there we go. That's the center. The bottom right corner point is then 400, 200. That's what we declared for the size at the beginning. Let's write something at a specific point on the screen. We're still at the same canvas size. I've zoomed out and set things up to detect mouse position. Ignore these two grid function and the mouse position function. Notice the function names are followed by parentheses. This is part of the JavaScript syntax. All right. The text is currently printed at 140, 80. And you can already see this in the arguments for the text function. Next, let me move it to 10, 10. One block of the grid is 20 by 20. Let's take a detailed look at the text function in the reference. Not a constant. There we go. Notice reference gives an example of usage. So always remember when you get stuck, maybe it's time to look in the reference. If we scroll down, we get general syntax. The text function can take 5 parameters. The first of these is a string. That's any kind of text or characters, followed by the x coordinate and the y coordinate. The text function can actually take 2 more parameters, as you see here, but they're optional. Okay? You can play with them to figure out how they work. This is actually a good time to clarify the difference between the terms parameter and arguments. What we have typed here for the text function are called arguments. The values that we are sending to the function. Parameters are sort of the general labels for the inputs that the function takes. For the text function, these are string, x value, y value, the width for the text box, the height for the text box. The last 2 of these are optional, as we saw before. Alright, now that we know how to write some text, let's segue to the given functions on the setup and the draw by writing some text. How about a few lines of Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles? Okay, I made an error. That's an error. I should have incremented on the y-axis, not the x-axis. And fixed. So I'll delete the grid to see it clearly and tidy code to align it. And I will improve the spacing by myself. You know, these semicolons at the end are not really necessary. JavaScript is just fine without them, but they're part of most programming languages and signify the end of a sentence. So I always use them when I clean up my code. It's like putting a period at the end of a sentence. And when it's missing, it just doesn't feel right. You will get an error printed in the console though if you miss an important part of the syntax. Okay, if I notice what happens if I take away this parenthesis. The error in the console is telling me exactly what the problem is and where the problem is. And you're going to use this quite a lot to debug later on. If you watched the last video, you're probably wondering the difference between the console.log function and the text function. Why don't we play with some code to figure out the difference? Notice, text function printed text on the preview screen, while console.log function logged the message to the console. And it keeps on repeating over and over. Look at these numbers before. I think they are the number of repetitions. The draw function keeps on going and going and going in a loop. Let's try something else. We'll put one message in the setup function and one message in the draw function. The setup function is meant to set up the starting code or the initial state. It runs exactly once at the beginning of the program. The draw function, on the other hand, runs forever in a loop. That's very interesting part of P5. The text is being printed over and over really fast. We don't see it. Let me see. We can visualize this better by logging frame rates. I'll freeze the screen. You'll see. You see the code within draw is repeating insanely fast, and we can't really detect it on the screen. This is just like Have you ever built a booklet and you flip the pages, you see the motion happening? That's kind of the thing that's happening here. And this is going to come in really handy in programs later on. But for now, it's good for us to know that setup runs once and draw function just keeps on looping over and over and over. And that's it for this video.